What's going on out there, everybody? We are back to give you guys another superhero movie review. This is a non-spoiler review. We've already released our first reaction right around midnight. You guys are gonna be watching this at 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time. I have Lucas here. What's going on, brother?
Nothing much at all.
And we're gonna be talking about Doctor Strange 2
The
in
madness I'm about to say in the mouth of madness. Oh, that's a
in the
so.
multiverse of
There you
madness.
go.
So this initially, who was assigned? So the original director of Doctor Strange 1 was initially the director for 2. Was that correct?
Yes, it is. That's Mr. Scott Dickerson.
Right. And then there was creative differences. He left, and then now Sam Raimi was the person that they chose to pick up the mantle for Doctor Strange 2. We already know, kicking off from the last Spider-Man movie, they implied that a multiverse is going to be a scenario because of the way that it ended. It showed that last trailer, as well as some of the other shows like Loki and WandaVision. All those kind of surrounded a multiverse. What did we think about Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness, though? That's the biggest question. So Lucas, I think what we're gonna do with this is gonna be very interesting because
Okay.
there are gonna be things that. Well, let's do it like this. Let's do it like this. Let's talk about some of the things that we liked about the movie, and then we'll go down to some of the things that we didn't like about the movie, and then some of the things that just didn't make sense in the movie. And I don't want you guys to get scared, but I do want to give you guys forewarning ahead of time that we will be talking about this and candid about things that we're trying to warn you about, things to get excited about, and things to not necessarily. So, what are some of the
Oh.
things you liked about the movie?
Um,
Um,
things you like about the movie. The score.
yeah, Danny
The
Elfman,
score is very, very, very reminiscent of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
correct.
Like it literally at times feel like they pulled directly from that Spider-Man score here, and it does work when it happens. It's very creative to pull it off that way. So the score is definitely something to like. Cinematography was really good on here.
Yeah, I did think so
I
too.
really like the shots that are pulled off. Not necessarily the overly special effects type shots, but the practical shots they pull off here. Some of them are really, really good, especially in the opening scene where, I mean, this is going to be a running theme where it clearly reminds you of a Spider-Man movie
Yeah,
right at the beginning, that beginning action scene that happens. It's shot beautifully. So many
yeah,
good angles on that. And then Doctor Strange himself.
yeah,
I mean, at this point, I think it's clear to say at this point that he understands the character enough to
hmm
give you a solid performance. And as long as he's playing off of someone, it works really, really well.
yeah,
And I think you really enjoy him. And is it Wong? Am I saying his name right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Wong.
yeah. When they play off and bounce off each other, that's the chemistry. And that's the best parts of Doctor Strange in the first or the second movie. It's the best parts of it when they are allowed to play off one another.
Yeah, yeah. I think that you're right. As far as the cinematography, like this is some of the sharpest um shots that they use. Like there's a pull out shot that when we first see Wanda and she's kind of like in this meadows of a whole bunch of different trees. She's scoping it, but just the way they panned it in, it was really practical and I really liked it. But I mean, it just looks really sharp. Most of the action moments, well, hold on, there's a transitional moment where some of the shots that you see from an action standpoint transition to more of a horror effect. I'll get into my thought processes on that in a second,
Yeah.
but I do think that some of the things that I did specifically with Wanda,
Mhm.
um, that sometimes can come off very terrifying. And I think that they play it up. I think that Scarlet Witch, as you know her, if you looked at or read House of M, or you kind of saw where they were leaning into that direction with WandaVision, they fully allow her to be exactly that. Um, Not just OP, but just menacing at times. And I think Elizabeth Olsen plays off of that pretty well. The other thing, like you said, I think that it's weird that there are two different tones. It's technically three. There's two different tones of the movie. There's a tone in the very beginning of this, very reminiscent of what you would be normally like, oh wow, this is a really good build-up. This is a really good superhero second film. And then the other tone is the horror. And when the horror goes this mixed shift of like horror, terror, comedy, dark humor, it definitely feels like Sam Raimi. And I do love Sam Raimi. There's things I love about Sam Raimi that I think that he adds to this that creatively I'm like, oh, okay, definitely. This pan in shot zooming into Elizabeth Olsen's eye and coming out and you seeing something terrifying is all
Yeah.
the way a setup of Sam Raimi. There's a shot where you see the multiverse version of Wanda, and there's something that happens and it sweeps the, and it's so creepy that I was like, oh, I like it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the horror moments when they start to go and progress, I really liked it. There is fan service, as most of these superhero movies have. And you do get some fan service that some of you guys have been waiting for. Some of you guys are thinking was going to happen. And I'm not going to say whether it happens or not, but I think that when you see certain moments, I think you'll really appreciate them. But those also delve into possible negatives as well, which we'll get into that a little bit later. The other thing I thought was really interesting is the world building. When you start to see some of the multiverse levels, I thought it was really interesting. Whereas like it's weird because the first Doctor Strange movie, and even when we went to Ant-Man 2 and they started going through different levels of like dimensions, sometimes it's just too much. Whereas with this, when you see and they use America Chavez, and I'm not going to explain what her power set is, but when they use her and they start to pull you through different dimensions, the visual spectacle and what that could mean and the possible world building behind that, I think that that's very intriguing. I'm all the way for what they could do with that. Whether or not they deliver, that's a whole different question. But I'm so on for where they're going with that, and hopefully they move forward with that and the possibilities behind it. But yeah, I think that is a good amount of the stuff that we can talk to on the positive level, because some of the other stuff that I have on negative are positive and negative. So it's weird. So okay, I'll go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. I'll say this. I really wish that the marketing, the TV spots, the trailers had not been so explicit, which they normally do this with Marvel and even sometimes DC, where they show you a big action moment or a big like reveal. And some of the TV spots are very revealing. And when you see that on the TV spot, and I thankfully didn't see it, and then you see it in the movie, it loses its impact because then there's nothing that can measure up to that later. And that leads into some of the negatives. Like some of the things that they reveal in those TV spots are highlights of the film. And so it loses its effectiveness on when you see it. Even this shot right here, you know, if you've seen a certain show on Disney Plus, you know the connection to this specific moment. And if I had never seen this moment, you know, I wouldn't even, I'd be like, whoa, I can't believe they're bleeding this over. I can't believe this is canon. You know, and I'm saying a lot without spoiling anything, but I'm saying that to tell you that if you're going into this movie completely cold turkey and oblivious to all of this, you may have a more entertaining time. But I think that most of you guys that are watching this are because you're comic book fans, because you watch everything Marvel. So you'll already have seen all this already. So it's gonna be a hard sell.
You already saw the big TV spot where they literally tell you the biggest spoiler humanly possible in the TV spot. Makes literally no sense that they did that. Like it's.
I wish they hadn't.
I am still confused on how that TV spot got out there.
Do you think
fact,
that it's a selling
TV
point?
Spots, oh, it's definitely a selling point.
Like that's to bring butts in the seats ultimately.
Hey man, you need something as big as what happened in No Way Home. Like, and you sacrifice maybe giving up too much information to do so.
Yeah, I think so. I really think so, because I think that if And man, I don't even want to get into other stuff that you
No,
can
no, no, no,
read
no, 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 no,
months
no.
ago. I'm not gonna go into this.
Just get into the things we have issue. I'm never gonna say don't like things you have issue with this film.
Yeah. Um, I will say this. I don't necessarily like the way that the movie abruptly ends. And I don't mean it like it just all of a sudden it stops. Like it's the way that it concludes, the back and forth tonal shifts, the position of where the story goes. When you have such build up for this movie to be the catalyst to where the MC is going, we already know that the MCU is going to have Blade. We already know the MCU is going to have, a certain family. We already know that a certain gene is coming. But, what I'm saying? Like, when they introduced and said that this was going to be the staple of where all this was going, I was like, okay, this is going to be this punchline. And that is not, that's not how this concludes. And the end fight in the way that it concludes doesn't make sense to the actual antagonist of this film, which bear in mind, again, I said that I appreciated Elizabeth Olsen, but one of the things I was hoping for before I even watched this film, and even when I was watching WandaVision, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, you built me a whole WandaVision. Show me what she can capable of, right?
Uh-huh.
But I hope and pray she's not the main antagonist. Well, that
She
is
is.
that is exactly what she is. And there's no cookie cutter way of saying it. It's predictable in the sense that you get exactly what you think. I say she plays it up. I think she does a great job being the antagonist, but I would have wished for a lot more, especially when you have this underlying factor, which is the multiverse. The multiverse has so many different incarnations of characters that you can go and play with and use them in a maniacal way, use them in a civil
Mhm.
way, and they don't really do that much. Matter of fact, you only technically see like maybe 3 versions of Doctor Strange. I don't know how many versions of characters you think you're gonna see, but it's not that many. They keep
So
this
in other words,
very.
the multiverse wasn't full of madness, is what you're saying.
It's weird
Hey,
because
that's what it breaks. That's what it basically breaks down to. It's not. But I mean, if you heard some of the theories that people had coming into this, what they expected to see, you're going to be highly disappointed because it's nothing like that at all. That's what Sam is trying to say.
I'm not gonna say much, but yeah, yeah. I will say this. One last thing on my negatives, and I could go on, but I think that these are the things that are key. I can't directly recommend this movie to people that have children over the age of 12.
Under.
Well, yeah, under
Yeah.
the age of 12. Because when Sam Raimi does horror, and the kind of horror that he does it in this. This sometimes it doesn't feel like a Marvel movie. Like kind of like Eternals doesn't feel like a Marvel movie either, but this plays and leans into horror and dark comedy in such a way that when I start seeing bodies, people burned alive, people disintegrated, heads blown off, like things like that. I It threw me off. I appreciate it, but I don't know what the target audience of this film is, and I think that's a little bit of a confusion when it comes to the tonal shifts. Because again, I can't necessarily recommend this to people. I'm like, yeah, bring your kid. Like, no, you need to screen this movie ahead of time because there's a lot of nightmare fuel, literally, even in the verbiage, especially in the third half. Like the things that were coming out of a certain character and what they were saying and what they were talking about, like it really is nightmare fuel. And so I would say just on the air caution, just know that going ahead of time. And I'm not saying that necessarily as a direct negative, but I think that it cuts off a target audience where you don't know what the target audience actually really is. But yeah, those are my negatives.
Hmm. So I guess it's on me now. So, um, I think the biggest negative I had for this film is that tonally it's all over the place. It is it feels um in different sections of the film that it doesn't know exactly what it wants to be. Does it want to be this lighthearted romp, which at times it is? Does it want to be this very uh horror centric type film, or does it want to lean more in a dark comedy? It's so many different tones, and it shifts those tones so fast that it's tonally all over the place. And again, this is not, unfortunately, especially as of late, the tonal switching has become a staple for people who don't really like follow Sam Raimi or his films. Of late, those tone changes in films have become a staple of his. That's not the best staple to have in a movie.
Right.
I mean, his last, before this film, his last movie he did was a Disney film, and it suffered from the exact same issue of its tone being all over the place. And here with Doctor Strange, the tone is all over the place. I don't think they can help it. It just never focuses the way you want it to be. Like if I would have gotten the straight or the PG-13 horror version of this film, I'd have been fine with it. If I'd have got the superhero thing, I'd have been fine with that. But it's just everywhere humanly possible, and it throws you off.
Yeah, I think this picture that I have up is literally that example. You
Yeah,
see the creature to the left, that is your classic Marvel action, down to almost down to Spider-Man level at times. The middle is Sam Raimi being all the way, horror. And then to the right, it's this dark humor that it I don't know that it works. I think that's one of the elements that necessarily
it is.
doesn't work.
It's one of the worst scenes I've ever seen in a Marvel movie when you're introduced to that character at the end. And that's
Yeah.
one of the worst scenes humanly possible for this film. But you know what? Not to isolate scenes, because I don't think that, can't tell a picture of a film is to isolate scenes that way. But along with the tone, I absolutely hate American Chavez. I don't know who this character is. I don't want to know who this character is. This character follows the trope of eventually you'll understand what your powers are. You none of that works. This Why is this character in this movie? Like, besides possibly marketing, diversity, or whatever else you want to throw them in there for, I need to know why this character's in this movie. It just feels unnecessary, and it's such an annoying character to have in this movie. Like, just to build that the connection that you're supposed to um feel between her and Doctor Strange, you never really feel it. It feels like it's just forced upon you that you're supposed to care for what happens with this character, even though the reasoning behind what's going on with the character also makes no sense. But just to have that character, it's just the annoying teenage character.
Mm.
It's the trope of you don't fully understand your powers, but by the end of the film, you're going to fully understand what your powers are. Like, we've seen that before. Matter of fact, too many times in superhero movies, we've seen that, and it's just such an unnecessary character that I did not like. And lastly, eventually they're gonna have to start like getting Scarlet Witch right, because this is another example of Scarlet Witch's felt like I was watching Zack Snyder's Justice League with Superman. The way people complained that Superman was so far overpowered that it was ridiculous. I felt the same way watching this movie with Wanda. And again, as Sam said, for her to be so OP and for them to draw the conclusion that they get to in this film, it leaves so many questions. Her
Yeah.
motives leave so many questions here. It
Yeah.
it 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 seemed like someone thought it would be a cool idea if she was the villain, and no one fully thought out how to do it properly.
Well, do you think if there was a situation where there was like a Jean Grey or, um, you know, a high-powered other entities out there in existence during that time, then it would kind of be like, oh, okay, I get this, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if the Phoenix was in and mutants were a thing, in the Marvel universe right now, because this is the thing, she's technically supposed to be a mutant,
Is she?
and yeah,
We we
and
had we had that discussion.
I know, I
By the
know,
end of WandaVision,
I know, I
they
know,
never bring up that word. And
I
because they
know,
have
I
not
know,
brought up that word, and because they don't play the lineage game with her, clearly they are not playing a lineage game with her at all at
I
this
know.
point. Because they have changed what they want Scarlet Witch to be, I'm not going to put it on her. I think that's unfair to them to put it on for me to expect her to act a certain way because people outside of the films know what she is. But if we just go by the film,
Yeah, no, I get it, but it's kind of like one of
but
the biggest enforcers with Wanda in this film
mhm,
is the same exact enforcer in WandaVision, which is her
yeah,
needing semblance of family. And with this, she needs her sons. But the weird thing in this is that there's no thought or talk about Vision. It's just her sons. And so if you go and you give and present like, okay, there's an alternative here. You have family.
yeah,
You have actual family. I think that a lot of that would be like, okay, you can subvert those thoughts and emotions, like knowing, like, no, I actually do have another place here without having to create something.
I
And
think
it kind of leaves her in
I
limbo
think
because she's not able to move forward, if that makes sense what I'm saying.
I think that's just something comic book fans are going to have to get out their mind because it's a chance that Marvel will not go down that road with this character.
It's possible.
And
I,
and and because it's a chance I feel they won't go down that road, I'll never judge the character based off of that. What I'm going to judge this character based off of is from what I saw in this movie, she should have been able to kill everybody in Endgame by herself. It should not have been a contest with anything. Like she is extremely overpowered in this.
well, so okay, I'll say this from the WandaVision standpoint. I think that her true potential did get awakened in the WandaVision. So I think that that kind of allows a lot of the understanding with it. The problem is, to me, is just the way of handling it. Their handling of how and who she is now doesn't necessarily make sense in the context of this movie. Um, and I kind of feel like the same way for America Chavez. Like I didn't I didn't really have an issue with America, honestly, personally. I don't find her any more annoying than that last, oh my gosh, that last Terminator movie. And that character, I don't even remember her name. That to me is the idea of an annoying character. I actually didn't have much problem with her. I thought she was like she's a teenager. Like it's not like she was being disrespectful and she was making these
But
funny quips. It was just she comes
it's
out of place at times to
it's
me.
the way they portray the character. Because in
Yeah,
all honesty, they never even tell you she's an actual teenager.
you
At
don't
no
know
point
that
do
for
they
sure.
bring that up.
You don't know for sure
So you
what
don't know
age
if
she
this is
is.
a young. So I'm not even going by age. I am going by the execution of this character and the way she at times just becomes a damsel in distress. And they repeatedly do that over and over again in this movie.
About 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and you're like, dude, come on. Like, when is it going? When are we just going to not follow that trope with that character? And that's what you're waiting for. But again, it's an ongoing theme with this film where it just seems at times certain people are out of place they shouldn't be.
Yeah, yeah.
And
But again,
it's fine because in all honesty, the two leads can carry it a lot of the way, but it when the tone is all over the place and it's at a breakneck pace at times, so it's not giving you a time to really catch up with the story about what's going on. Like
mhm,
coming to the film, Sam missed the first 30 seconds of the film coming
mhm.
in. By the time when he saw after literally after the first 30 seconds, he's like, what the heck is going on here? It's the way the film starts and it's the way the pace is. The pacing is so quick and
Mhm.
there's so many rapid turns in the tone of it, it can really throw you off. So it takes away that breathing period, in all honesty, to care. Maybe that's the issue with American Chavez is that they never give me a point where I should care about this character.
Yeah, there's not enough connective tissue, and the connective tissue is supposed to be off the merits of her and Doctor Strange's relationship, but that's not the
Shown.
best relationship or shown at all. Matter of fact, it's actually more chemistry between Elizabeth Olsen and Benedict Cumberbatch than it is
Yeah.
the actress of American Child, and they're not even in as much scenes as they are. So, I mean, that could be acting, but I think it's just really kind of chemistry. And to Lucas's point, one thing I did think was interesting is I felt like in this movie, like a horror movie trope is that
Yep.
anybody can get it, like anybody
Yes.
can die. That
That's the
is
big
this
one.
movie. That like honestly, this is the first Marvel movie that I kind of felt like, you know what? Doctor Strange could get murked by this woman at any time. Like anybody can catch. And to be fair, some people do catch some bad hands. Some terrible things happen in this movie that I've been holding my tongue, but I do like that. I like the fact that I was like, it caught me off my toes. I understand why some of those in the middle, it might
Did you
make some
not?
people feel
I
away.
about to say, did you not feel it was a cheap trick? Because that all felt so cheap to me. Every bit of it.
I
It
didn't.
reminded me of a very cheap way to do Drew Barrymore in Scream.
So this is the reason why I didn't have as much problem with that. The way they handled a certain speedster in WandaVision, that felt cheap and that felt sleazy to me. With this, honestly, the way that they presented how Wanda is, I was like, well, daggone,
But
anybody can catch it. So for me, from an entertainment standpoint, I liked that side of the horror element of like, oh man, well,
mhm.
anybody can catch hands. Like, does that mean you're gonna get different versions of these certain other characters? But the problem is the payoff, they don't lean into the multiverse aspect. They stay to just
Right
a
there,
certain character,
in
and that's
yeah,
it.
yeah, they stay in the spot that they're supposed to be in, where it leaves no hope that anything's going to ever come from that stuff. It's just, hey, cool moment, interject people for cool moment. But that's what I mean by the Scream effect. It's the Drew Barrymore at the beginning of Scream 1. It's the Jada Pinkett and Omar Epps in Scream 2.
Mhm.
Like, it's the, hey, this is a name, or this is a known thing. Let's put this known thing on here and then have them dead within 2 minutes. That's it. It's a cheap trick. It's something to for the multiverse to have madness. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, all I can say is that the way they use horror entertainment, I thought was very fun and entertaining. I actually, I mean, sometimes it can come off like, but to me, I actually really dug it. I mean, some of those scenes in the middle, like I feel a way about, but I want to see them again. The problem is really the ending for me, and the way they end it, it kind of throws a lot of it off. There's literally a fight with Doctor Strange and Doctor Strange with music notes, and I mean that with tears in my eyes. I mean with musical notes.
It's the worst
Um,
scene I've ever seen.
and
Unnecessary. Oh my god.
it throws the movie out to me
It's a good shout
because
out to Danny Elfman though.
well, but if you've seen the animated feature on Disney Plus, you're gonna be thrown off by this. You're gonna be like, yo, y'all are not y'all taking the easy route with this specific scene.
Mm.
And the lengths that they go in the animated feature versus the actual multiverse of madness, like it's I don't know. But in terms of again, like surprises, I think you're gonna be intrigued by in terms of the horror, in terms of the entertainment. The first part is so superhero Spider-Man-esque. It's intriguing. But yeah, for me, I thought it was really entertaining. I just wish it would have leaned more into the multiverse of madness. I wish it would have leaned more into understanding where this is going versus just giving me a certain tone here or there. But I think it's far superior than the first one. But I mean, to be fair, the only thing I remember about the first one is the 3D and getting a headache. I don't
Hey,
even. It was a Malekith? No, that wasn't it. It was Mads
matter of fact,
Mikkelsen. He was the.
it amazingly suffers from an issue that the first one had. The first one had a 10-minute preview before the movie came out. In that 10-minute preview, it literally could told you the whole movie, and you did not need to see anything else.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, and I'm hoping people who have not, if you have not seen the television spots for this, don't see it before you see this movie.
Please don't.
If you see the television spots, literally the only moment that I think people will truly care about is absolutely ruined by the TV spots. That's the best way to put it. And Twitter. Don't go on Twitter. But like, other than that, there's literally nothing overly excitable to look forward to in the film. It's it's the opposite of No Way Home, where you kind of knew what was going to happen, but boy, when it came on screen, it still caught you off guard. And then it caught you by the way they chose to use that said characters
Right.
and how it actually led to the plot of the film. Here, you get interesting things happening, but if I took out that 6 minute, maybe six, no, 4 minute section, it would change nothing in this movie.
So I'll ask you this question. Say you didn't hear or read anything. Say you didn't see the TV spots. What would be your feeling on this film
If
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 you
you
went
if
into
you
this movie completely cold turkey?
if you went into a cold turkey without seeing the last two TV spots, without being spoiled on Twitter, I say you walk away disappointed because things happen too quickly. And then you would feel that same sense of like, so did we just insert a cool moment to get attention? At that point, I would just prefer that you give a straight Doctor Strange movie without
Mm.
all the outside influences, and you can keep American Chavez. Just keep her. No need for her.
Yeah, I think that they needed America Chavez to be a catalyst for the multiverse aspect. Like, if you guys know the comics, I mean, it's really connected. I mean, honestly, all the characters they picked in this, like the Nexus, which is Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, America Chavez, all this plays into multiverse. My issue again is you present some really interesting ideas, but I don't think they leaned in multiverse like they really could have. And I don't know if it's because this should have been the multiverse aspect of this. Maybe it should have been on Avenger scale with a certain character in Loki as the front and center of that. Because honestly, that character that was in Loki, I felt like would have been so much more interesting to introduce a
Hey,
multiverse scenario. That's all
that
I'm gonna
is
say.
that was something that I think is going to leave people the most disappointed. That it's a certain character that's not in this film that I think people are going to have questions about. And again, that's the issue here. Again, but it's a Marvel movie, and that's all I'm going to say. But it's this one is not the typical Marvel movie. As
No,
Sam
it's not.
said, if you got young kids, this is not for them. They should not see this movie. Um, it's I think the pacing is going to throw a lot of people off. I think the tone is going to throw a lot of people off. I think the horror s elements, if you are not accustomed to Drag Me to Hell or a lesser version of Army of Darkness, where the horror comedy and all of it is mixed so much together that at times it just catches you off guard if you're not used to that, or if again one of the worst tropes that Sam currently has going is the not not being able to switch tones properly in films because of the pacing is off. I think again those are issues that some people are going to have with it. But if you're just someone who loves Marvel movies, you're not going to care about any of that. You're gonna go and do it and say, "Oh, that's cool." Like
Yeah.
none of that is going to matter to you anyway.
Yeah. I would say on the other side of that, I mean, on the positive side, I mean, you're gonna like a lot of the shots. I think some of the surprises, I think you're gonna be intrigued by. I think that you're gonna really love the score. I think you're gonna like what Benedict Cumberbatch pulls for Doctor Strange in this movie, and I think honestly with Scarlet Witch, I think that they go full tilt with her. So those are things I think that you're gonna enjoy. And I mean, again, I guess if you are a horror fan and you're interested to see what is Disney's horror take on a superhero film, I mean, you may enjoy that. So I think if not anything, is very entertaining. I do think that if it was spaced out a little bit better, um, I don't know. Do you think if it was like a little bit longer or spaced out a little bit
Yeah,
better, it would have
if
functioned a little bit
if they would
better?
have added about 15 minutes more for a tad bit more backstory,
Hmm.
explain the American Chavez character a little bit more.
Or
You gave
start with her. Start with her
you gave
story.
her a quick blip of a past story that explains little to nothing of anything that she can actually do. And the freaking star as she look, look,
I don't have any problem with her. I
look.
think she's all right.
Again, I'm just going to say that we managed to get other stuff with multiverses without her in it. So, what is literally the point of her being in this one?
I'm gonna leave it at
Diversity.
that. I'm gonna leave it at. I'm not even gonna go there. What do
Diversity.
we?
She's a diversity hire.
What? No, I'm not gonna go there. I'm not saying that. What do we?
I'm going to say that she's a diversity hire. It's perfectly fine to say it. Everyone does it. Come on, everybody does it. It happens.
She's
And
fine. She's fine. What do we rate this? A to F. As far as superhero, A to F, because I know you. I know you.
um, again, I am a lover of horror. So I absolutely enjoyed the horror elements of this, and it's something that I think if you're a horror person, you're gonna love the back half of this film. If you are into the bubbly superhero stuff, you'll probably love
The beginning.
the beginning of the film. It just
Yeah.
depends who you are. But Ada, maybe a C minus. I mean, it's that ending is so bad that it can really take you out of this film because it kills the purpose of the entire movie. And that's something that you should never do. You should never have your ending take away everything. All the buildup that you get is okay to be disappointed by an ending, but it's a completely other thing to just feel like you were just so wrong to that character by the end of the movie. You're like, why would you want to end it that way?
Yeah, I would have preferred, honestly, outside influences to be involved in some
Uh-huh.
capacity. I was actually kind of looking towards that, but it just doesn't happen. I was just like, oh, well, I guess I'm supposed to accept this. But yeah, I mean, I'm at a B minus, C plus, B minus. Would I watch this again before the first one? Yes. I'm actually really curious to go through just the multiverse films and TV series that they're trying to do, because the problem is that all these feel like moments of multiverse issues that are not connected.
Yeah.
And I can't go into that because
Because you don't want to spoil it.
I
Because it's
can't
certain
spoil
things,
anything.
certain things that again, that's why I say that's why I can give it a C minus. This is very weird that we are very close in score because you said B minus C plus and I said a C minus. This is the first time we've been that close when it came to to one of these movies.
It is. It is.
But again, it's some moments that people are gonna really, really like. It's some big moments that people are gonna really, really like. But I
Yeah.
think in the end, I don't believe this is the film that people want it to be. And I think that's going to be the reaction you're going to have to wait and see. Because I understand people say, well, you shouldn't go into these films with certain expectations and things of this
Mhm.
nature. But unfortunately, this movie has been hyped up to the point where you expect a spectacle and you don't necessarily get that.
Yeah. Not on the level of No Way Home. I'll say it like that. It's not on
Hell,
that level.
not on the level of Civil War. Not, I'll go even further. Not on the level of Thor Ragnarok.
No, don't do that. No, that's disrespectful.
No, I want you to
Don't say that.
really, I
Don't
want you
say
to
that.
really, really think about the spectacle that was Thor Ragnarok and what you had. Technically, Thor Ragnarok had an OP villain in it that got a better ending than this one did.
Yeah, it did, but
And
again,
Thor Ragnarok had bigger repercussions.
it did. I'm not
There you go. You
but
can't.
what I'm saying is that this is it's hard for me to articulate without saying too much, but this added in multiverse and what that means. The problem is they just don't go all the way into it, and that's why I can't say but so much. I agree to disagree with what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but it's like anyway, we're gonna go.
It teased you with a multiverse when you thought this would be the one that fully explained it.
Yes, it validated every phase moving forward. Everything that's connected, everything that we rest this.
Can I say this last thing, then we get out of here?
Yeah.
That is the issue with a lot of Marvel fans. When everything is connected, you're waiting for that next big thing that puts everything together. And we are what? 3 films into phase 4 and 5 series?
Yeah.
And you still haven't gotten it yet. And I think that's what's throwing most people off. When I'm just gonna say, sit back and enjoy what you got. And hopefully they'll you got 2 more coming out this year. Maybe between Thor, Love, and whatever, since there's another Thor in that movie. And maybe between Black Panther 2, because the Fishman is supposed to be in it, supposedly. Maybe that'll help explain the multiverse a little bit more. Because this just leaves doors open and ideas out there to hopefully be expounded upon. But you kind of thought this was going to be the movie that explained everything to you.
Dude, I swore that Kevin Feige was like, wait till Multiverse of Madness. Wait until Multiverse of Madness. Oh, Spider-Man, no, you ain't seen anything. If you thought Spider-Man was this, wait till Multiverse of Madness. So, I mean, I'm going off of what I've been told. I might have, maybe I misheard, but.
Hey, don't go after what you've been told. Just calm down, Marvel people. I'm letting y'all know ahead of time for y'all that may not like this movie. Just calm down and enjoy what you have in front of you. And take every one of these movies as a gift. That's my message to you.
Oh my God. This is blessing us with the word.
Hey, man, because I already know what's going to happen when this comes out and when it drops and people's emotions and feelings behind it and behind some of the bigger moments in the film. But I'm just going to say, enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna be optimistic. I'm gonna believe that. I mean, those parents are taking their kids in there not knowing. I'm scared for them.
Look.
I'm scared for them.
If you have little kids and they are accustomed to seeing superhero films, as a parent, you need to see this film first. You need to make a calculated decision if you're going to let your child see this movie. Yeah. If you don't mind night terrors for months afterwards, by all means, take them to go see it and don't look at it ahead of time. But if your child is skittish in any way, shape, form, or fashion, this is not the film just to go in blind with them seeing. Go see it yourself, check it out, and then as a good parent, you'll be able to judge if this is something your kid can see.
I agree. I completely agree. And on that note, we're gonna go. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell button. Hopefully you enjoyed our breakdown, non-spoiler review. Some kind of way this is a 40-minute non-spoiler review of Doctor Strange. We gave you the good, the bad, the weird, and stuff that we didn't understand or comprehend. There are 2 end-credit scenes. The last end-credit scene, in my personal opinion, is a throwaway, and the first one is implying some interesting things. Comic book fans should know who what that's about, but I'm gonna leave it at that. Anything else, Lucas?
Just go out this weekend, enjoy the film. If it's up for you, if it's not for you, hey, don't poop on anyone else's parade. Like,
I agree.
Let them enjoy it. I'm not the biggest fan of Marvel movies, but I could care less at this point. Let other people enjoy this film because I think they will. And then give your honest opinion, as you all will do anyway.
Right. On that note, we're gone, y'all. Peace until next time. Filing out the top of I can see skyline, 50 mile radius on my timeline.